Am I recording? Let's just double check, Thomas. We are recording. Welcome to the PARAcast. I'm your host, Tomas the Boss Hernandez, joining you on a 3-day weekend because thank goodness it's been a heck of a weekend. Got my hair combed, put the hydroxylic acid on my face, got my Vegeta shirt on, did an hour and a half of yoga this morning. Feeling fresh. Wrote a lot of intros. Joining me tonight, he's the only person on the earth who wants his .40 caliber Glock back. It's Steve Koski.
I'd like the skill back.
I did the math.
Maybe not the cartridge.
.40 caliber was only worth 6% of your score. If you had shot in major, you would have gotten 6% and took second limited B or something in it. But I was just thinking, you should probably get this back. Let me see if so I can jump through these. No, that's Jared's. No, that's Kenny's. Let me go farther down the list. He's sacrificing America's youth to the CZ cabal. It's Jon Bautista.
Good afternoon, good evening, gentlemen. It's good to be back.
He can make all the misses disappear and the neighborhood cats. It's Robert Wyatt.
Hey, it's the benefits of having a silenced weapon and being stats.
And the crystal ball predicted in 30 years he will win the category of tallest gay. It's Kevin Izatt.
Rude from the first.
There's a lot of categories in the next 30 years.
I guess that's one way to make sure.
Would you like to be on the PARAcast? Would you like to rethink your decision?
You really want to be here.
Everyone, here's the ultimate PARAcast rule. If you ever laugh at a joke made at anyone else's expense, you've now green-lighted yourself to be assaulted on the show. No one gets a free pass. And by getting a free pass, somebody got a very expensive pass to an unplanned Utah County Salt Lake vacation. And it was one of our listeners, one of the nicest people, and one of the things I want to bring up and rake Jon Bautista over the coals for there was a listener, and he came by, and his lovely wife or girlfriend was with him, and he on the second stage.
Was this the hammer?
He did the speed decock, and the speed decock sent him away, and he was not the most experienced shooter, but he had that, and when asked what he did, he said, "I did the Jon Bautista finger roll that John taught." The thumb roll. And so here to not defend himself and take all the blame is Jon Bautista. John, thoughts, comments, concerns, questions?
Yeah, John. Why are you telling people bad advice?
I never give bad advice, Robert. I give people choices to make. And his choice on how to decock a CZ is kind of up to you. It's like what kind of shampoo you like. And he decided to kind of slip his own finger before the hammer touched his finger. And
it hurts when that thing snaps on your finger.
Not with his gun. He's got a 10-pound hammer spring in there. This is not like yours or freaking Tommy's where it's like a 15-pounder and it might, crush a finger, Jared. But more on that to come. Still not my fault. Not my fault, boys.
Well,
all I'm saying is if you're taking gun administration advice or administrative gun handling advice from the House of Speed, you probably want to turn the speed down a little bit because.
Well, yeah. Robert, you have your Shadow 2 with you. So how do you decock it the fail-safe decocking way? If you're the brand new shooter with the CZ75, how would you decock it?
Just like this, put the magazine in, pull the trigger. Oh wait, that's what he did. Never mind.
No, he did not do that.
If I do it, I pinch the sides. I pinch the sides of the hammer. Because on this one it's a skeletonized hammer, and so I've got a lot of grip surface just to hold it down. Alternately, you can walk it down. I'm not really crazy about that because I've seen it when the gun's a little bit wet, or your hands are sweaty or something like that. I've seen people actually slip off of it and drive it home.
Okay, hold on. Let's clarify the various different ways. So this is an educational moment on the PARAcast. We actually will teach people the various ways of gun handling. So first of all, empty gun, everybody.
Remember, John is actually talking here. The one who actually caused the guy to get DQ. Go ahead, John.
Well, hold on. Let John talk.
One method.
Let John talk after I besmirch him some more. I asked, I said, this is not the starter gun that you should give people. And John said, I started with it. Wait a second. I shot an XD. Then I shot a Glock. Then I shot a Shadow 2. But I still think it's a beginner. Go ahead, John.
All right, here we go. So empty gun, so you don't get DQ'd in your own house, like, into the ceiling. So there's two ways of doing it. You have the traditional pinch it method, where you literally pinch the hammer, pull and hold the trigger, and walk the hammer down.
And then you let go of the trigger as soon as you let go of the trigger as soon as you can, right?
Correct. Number 2 is the method in which Chris attempted to do. So gun empty, stick your finger in between the firing pin and the hammer, pull the trigger, hold onto the trigger, and roll your finger out of the way. The third method, which I do, is I'll load, and then I will just simply pinch my thumb and do the same thing and roll it out of the way. So those are the three
eventually
methods.
you're going to torture around doing that.
But that's a risk, though. I mean, everyone that shoots enough, it's a kind of an unfortunate kind of circumstance that will happen because chance.
John, Robert, have you ever torched one?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
So I've never seen anybody torch around
not on a
during load and
CZ.
make ready.
I've seen
on any type of a gun. I've seen it during unload and show clear a handful of times, but never during load and make ready.
I've done it on purpose a couple of times.
During load and make ready?
No, not during a match setting. I've dropped my hammers. I've held the trigger down and then dropped the hammers at various different points on this swing to see at what distance can I theoretically like drop this thing and still have it. It was just a prime case in it, right? But I'm curious, how far back does the hammer actually have to be before it becomes an ignition sequence?
Tell the truth, Robert. It was a primed case pointed at a cat.
It was a prime case, right there.
And what did you learn from this, Robert? I'm assuming you learned don't drop the hammer. Be safe.
No, I mean you learn. Actually, on this gun, I can basically go to. If I can do this, it's hard on camera, but I can go to about there, and if I slip it there, it won't pop.
Okay.
So a little bit less than halfway, and the gun's not going to go off.
Don't do that.
I'm not inclined to
write
do
it
that,
all the way home.
I do. No, that's what I do. And that's just what I found. And John's method, it totally works. And honestly, Chris's method sucks, but it does work. I know a lot of people who do it. I just think it's so easy to all that grease and stuff. I've seen a lot of people just slip their finger out of there a lot faster than they intend to.
Another known risk is if anyone on the show is using a stock mainspring, so like the 15-pound plus. Robert mentioned that it doesn't light when he's like right around here. If you do have like a stock mainspring and you let it go, there's a high chance it will light. So just don't slip the hammer in general. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
So quick administration. John, make sure you don't have two mics on again. The other thing I just don't like having a gentleman introduce himself as his listener and then have his wife or girlfriend also introduce themselves as a wife or as well. She's obviously attached to him as like a listener, and I like the show, and everything's great, and then seeing them go home and then recommending them good places to hike in Crownburger on at 8:30 a.m. on day one. The other thing is like I like having at least a majority of people who aren't drinking the Shadow 2 Kool-Aid as we kind of sit here and look at each other in the eye and shake our head as you guys are explaining the mechanisms of the Shadow 2 and how great they are. It is I know it's the duty service issue weapon of USPSA. Like if we were all a police organization, everyone would be issued a Shadow 2 from the factory. It is a gun. All my advice is if you get a Shadow 2, you walk around with the gun unloaded a lot and get used to handling the gun a lot.
You know what? Here, any gun has the potential of having catastrophic circumstances.
Yeah,
it's a gun. If you learn how to properly handle the gun and take the steps to be safe with that firearm, then you're just fine. Can't the bad things happen? Bad things can happen with every single gun.
Yeah.
It doesn't
It's just
matter.
one thing I don't have to think about.
I don't.
Well, and here's the real benefit, I think, right? Like, when you guys started shooting Shadow 2s, what was the better option? Or what was
How do
a
you mean?
comparable option?
Like, what was
There
it?
wasn't
What,
one, right? For production, right? There wasn't a
Tankfolio,
comparable option. Maybe a
cooperative
Tankfolio,
folio.
right? But
Yeah.
nowadays we have a lot of more comparable options, right? So, progression.
No, that's fine.
Hopefully somebody can make a pistol
I happen to like this gun, and I put
that has
many
a,
rounds through it, and I don't see anything on the market right now that makes me look at it and be like, I'm gonna change, because I just
No,
like it.
well, I don't just say that to say
No,
that
I
Shadow
do.
2's
No,
bad
I'm
in
with
any
you.
way, right? But just that we've progressed a lot. You know, USPSA has moved the sport of pistol shooting forward. There's a lot of good options now. That if you're worried about a hammer, there's some great options out there.
Kevin.
Yeah, true.
Kevin,
Very true.
this is the Paracast. Feel free to come after people and besmirch each other. That's the whole point of the show.
Look, I love the feel of a Shadow 2. I just am, you know, I'm frugal. You know,
Well, then,
What are you shooting, Kevin?
mechanic.
Mechanic
It's
and
steel frame,
CO,
so-
right?
Yeah.
I'm frugal. What are you shooting, Kevin? Canic, steel frame.
Max
Uh-huh.
with the Max, the Romeo Max on top. You know,
Don't tell people.
Keep it on the
Hey,
DL.
I shot the Vortex for several years, so.
the old. Okay, so let's talk about. We shot Utah State, the Barry's Utah State Championship presented by Homestead Cabinets. Clay Grover absolutely coming through once again for the club. Once again,
Oh my
at
gosh,
a dinner.
that could not have been a better organized match with better stages, better setup, the quality of the stages, the quality of the setup. The staffing was generous. Like, we had lots of staff. I don't know about your squads,
We had 59 staff.
but like we actually were not completely burnt on our squad, on our stage. We had time to rest and recuperate. It was great.
I cannot remember a major match that was ran like we were not angry. Like, I was trying to get everybody cheered up about an hour and a half lunch. Like, we're sitting in an overcast, the shade. We've shot 7 stages or 5 stages already, and everyone's just like, I want to
like,
shoot.
God damn it, we're ahead of schedule. I want to shoot.
I
I'm
want
like,
to shoot. It's just like,
It could be raining. It could be 98 degrees.
it's a Saturday. We're with our friends. We're ahead of schedule. It's overcast. We're in lawn chairs. Everybody calm down. It's like we couldn't get out of our way fast enough to complain about
Yeah.
almost a perfectly organized
I'm going
ran.
to say it was perfect. That's the best organized match I think I've ever seen.
Like,
Yeah, I'd for sure rather wait sitting in lawn chairs knowing that there's just a set period of wait rather than getting jammed up and standing there for 4 hours as you watch 3 other squads shoot this stage that has a malfunction every other shooter or something, right?
yeah.
And there's no shade on the next bay.
Right.
You're standing. Yeah.
By
There's
the time it's your turn, it's almost dark. You're like, so yeah, it ran perfect. It was great, actually. I mean, great stages.
I mean, and the start tables. There's a high level. The barrel covers. There was such a high level of polish on top of the match. I shot. Me and Kevin shot with the Secret Service team, and they kept bringing up, why don't we have pasters? And I told them, we don't do that here. Men are men. We use brown tape here
It's
in
a
Utah.
cultural thing.
It's a culture.
West of the Mississippi, we use tape.
We use tape out here. All right. We ain't on the government's dole.
I mean, the answer is because when we use pasters, the paper just tends to get thrown in the trash, and then the wind picks it up, blows it all over the range, and it just creates a mess that then somebody has to deal with.
There's a better.
That's
there's a better
the
reason.
biggest reason why we don't pursue that more often.
the little backer strip.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've seen people, I've watched shooters use their last paster and just let go of the strip. I'm like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just
Now, having said that, I'm okay. I'm 100% okay with like just brown tape rolls for all of our normal targets, but I think you absolutely should use pasters for your the white guys and black guys.
It does make a little bit more.
That
yeah.
tape just kind of goes to crap really quick, but the paster rolls, they last almost indefinitely, and you don't ever have a problem with the tape, kind of going bad.
Well, you can,
And so
and you can easily take a paster or 2 pasters in any sort of order and keep scoring lines almost perfect all the time.
Yeah,
Because you got 2
in
sides of the
those
tape that are
situations,
squared,
it's really good.
but other than that, like you can mangle pasters and all sorts of geometrical fashion to get something covered up. Eddie, let me see. I do not recall a bad stage. I thought having a fixed time 6-second stage on the match was a lot of fun.
That was super good idea. A great stage too, because like it was doable.
Oh yeah, I think.
Did anybody max the score?
I don't think anyone shot 60.
I think Jon shot it really well.
I shot it fantastically.
I've seen your points. I disagree.
I had
Yeah, but you haven't seen the
Fair.
video.
You have to see the video.
Looks awesome on Instagram.
So we had two shooting boxes, and we had two shooting boxes, and we had about 4 walls, 2 walls in front of each shooting box, and 2 walls in front of each other shooting box, and you could start on either side of those 2 shooting areas, and there was a space in between, and you had a 6-second fixed par time shooting IPSC targets, and when we heard about it, our squad, it was kind of like, oh, this is going to be kind of nuts. But I think almost everyone on our squad finished before the par time was up. And I don't know if that was the case with you guys.
Except for the Secret Service guy bringing a rifle to a pistol match.
Yeah.
That's stuck in the port.
Oh.
So it was. I think most of us got through to the very end, but it was the acquiring of points was a different story, I think, for a lot of people.
The thing about all the stages in that is the stages were, for that match, we asked for stages very early on. It was like, I think we actually started asking for them December of last year, and then we met on them in January, February, March, April. We're basically hammering them out, trying to figure out what was going to work. And in the process, I know Gary had, when we finally figured it out, the biggest kind of like challenge we had was stage 1. The original implementation of stage 1 was supposed to be 32 open targets, 1 shot each, and this was really interesting. It was the original layout. There was 32 open targets, 1 shot each. And then the walls were very similarly situated to what you saw there, and it was about double the length.
It was already huge. It was going to be bigger than that.
Yeah,
well,
it was about double the size.
It was a large field course, L-shaped, starting at the base of the L, and what did we have? 16, almost all open targets. I think there was a couple slants in there, and it probably went forward in length on the long part of the L, probably about another 25 yards. I mean, it was and not only that, it was positioned in a way that it was almost kind of like a memory stage, in that you could quickly overrun the targets on the left by not being precise with your positions. It was a fun stage.
Right, and what you saw on the ground at the match basically was the end result of a lot of conversations going back and forth with the stage designer, saying, "Do you understand how long it will actually take to shoot 32 single targets
and reset it,
reset and move?" And so when we finally kind of had it all figured out what we were going to do, Gary actually asked me to take a look at all the stages and then order them in such a way that the flow would be continuous, so that you weren't having backups. And what you saw was basically like, that's how I kind of figured I think we swapped. There was one stage that we swapped just because the base size worked better, but the whole goal with all the stuff on 1, 2, and 3, which was our longer stages, was by having that short course over on the very, very far at 14, then people would be forced to take the long walk all the way back to 1, which would hopefully give enough time for squad 1 to shoot that stage, which was going to be a longer stage, and then move into 2, and you wouldn't lose your flow. And that, for putting a match together, that's always kind of one of the biggest things that you're looking for and trying to solve is, I mean, people can deal with the stages being whatever they are, but if you have a squad that just starts backing up and they're sitting there for 20, 30 minutes, like, that just kills a match. I mean,
Yeah,
at a local, if you have an hour wait, for me, generally speaking, I'm like, peace out, boys. I'm going home.
there is. I think if there isn't, there's at least the thought of like a performance degradation on waiting for a stage when it's not actually like a break. Like I think everyone kind of feels that the aches and the pains creeping in. You start to get a little sore. You try to drink some water, then you get up. You're getting tight, and it just feels not helpful. At least all the local guys that were on the squad ahead of us were up and working, but there was like 4 of them. So
Yeah.
yeah, that
And
was
so,
yeah,
and I
an
mean,
issue.
like, you're when you build the squad matrix and you start trying to actually analyze and how long it's going to take times, I mean, in terms of turnover. So how much time should you allocate for a stage? We we kind of figured a certain set of time, and they're like, well, and then we were told like that's not actually enough, and so they added more time to it, and functionally the time that we had thought would have been correct, and Gary kind of had it figured out in his head, and it actually would have been correct, which is why you saw the thing that's interesting is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stages were some of the more long stages. And so while you guys were all down on the ends shooting all these quick stages and we're done and you're like, why are we done so early? We have this long wait for lunch. What you weren't necessarily seeing was the fact that all of those
1
other
through 5,
stages
yeah.
We're still shooting. We
were
couldn't
still
even
shooting.
jump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when that's happening, and you saw this actually repeat itself at the end of the match. I mean, all the stuff on the right side bays, the high numbers were done shooting, and the guys on the other end were still shooting. And so there's always this balance that you have to kind of like figure out and work
Yeah.
through when you're putting this stuff
Well, you
together.
figured
that
it
a
out,
lot of
Robert.
people don't see.
Nice work.
Yeah,
Well, no, you can never account for everything, right? Like me and Tommy's squad, we had 2 guys no show, and then we had the DQ, right? So
Oh,
throws
yeah,
our
yeah,
cycle
yeah,
time
yeah,
way
sure.
off, right? How do you plan for that?
Yeah.
But no, there was a lot. There's Gary did a really good job this year. He put a lot of people into the match and took advice from everybody. And I think it actually came together. There was one thing I ended up talking to. So we went out Saturday night to the Rodizio Grill, and I was able to talk to Jeremy Reed. He actually came out to the match and shot single stack, and we were talking, and there was a conversation that came up, and I'll ask you guys about this and get your thoughts on this. So we had what was it? 2 stages, stage 2 and then stage 3, where you had actually
The
I think there
weekend
was
only
another one.
stage.
No, where you had
Just kidding.
There
There was no weak hand, no strong hand, right? It was
you had a popper and then an activator hidden behind it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twice.
What do you? I think it might have been 3. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But we had that happen. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
John?
It's fun. I think it's fun.
Okay.
And on at least one of the stages, you had the option of shooting it from kind of a weird position and hitting the back one first if you wanted to start the activator. And some people did.
Yeah, so thinking about Utah State in general, for everyone who's listening in who's never shot Utah State before, if you're looking for a match to go to as your first state match and want a really well-rounded experience from stage design, stage options, just having fun to shoot, this is a stage you want. This is a state you want to go to. Same with Carolina Classic, we talked about them before. Ben Berry down there, another really well-run state match. And with having options like the 2 popper situation where, yeah, if you don't feel confident, drill the first one down so you can get to the activator behind it. It gave some strategies for a little bit of different shooters so they can have more options on something that perceives to be a no option stage. It's a small detail that allows you to shoot it differently and get to probably 2 or 3% points against a similar person who would try to do it in a different way. So it was really well done. The 2 stages that had the popper in front and the activator behind it gave those options to those people, and it basically allowed a rope to be hung to see, okay, if you want to activate the activator behind, go ahead and try, but you better make sure you hit it the first time, because the guy who's going to shoot it more secure by taking out the popper in front is probably going to beat you if you don't do it right the first time.
Kevin?
Well, and Robert, I think I'm bad with names. I can't remember the guy's name. I heard part of this conversation, and his contention was more like, what if it fails to fall, and like you have to calibrate. And I get what he's saying. I just don't think you plan for that failure, right? Like,
No, you have to though.
but no, I don't think you do, right? Because
You do. Here's the
Maybe if you have
challenge.
bad steel, I don't know. I
Well,
just
that
I don't think
and
it's a big of a
Kevin, I
concern
actually
as-
thought about this, and what you're saying is you're speaking from the perspective of like us here in Slipsa, where we have really good steel, and they're so consistent. But you go around the world, and you're talking to different clubs who have some crappier steel.
Doesn't really replicate well with backfalling poppers.
That's
Well,
that's
sure.
kind of my big question though. is,
Okay,
like,
so
if you
spill it. What's the potential issue? Somebody.
okay,
What's
so
this?
here's the question. If so, say, I mean, disregard that you could maybe take it from a different side. If you have a front popper, and then the activator's behind it, you shoot the front popper and it doesn't go down. Now, as the shooter, what happens?
You can try to call for calibration and get
No.
super screwed later, or
That's-
you drive it down.
Okay, but then as the shooter, you're not being given a fair opportunity on the stage, because that popper should have run. But if you shoot it, and like if you shoot our steel and it doesn't go down, you're gonna lose calibration. It's
So
pretty
instead of
much a
getting
guaranteed
popper
roll.
fucked, you get like double popper fucked because
You get
haven't-
popper fucked and activator fucked.
and all the
Yes.
mics.
Everything just adds up on you, and it's
And
really
no-
kind of not cool, right? And so it's an interesting thought to think about, where we have this front one and then we have a back one that actually does the activation. But if you take and you ask that question of what happens if the front one doesn't fall and never exposes the activator, what do you do as a shooter? Because now you as a shooter have been penalized, and potentially penalized even more for something
Robert,
that you don't get to have the opportunity. And so it's an issue. It's an issue that like, and there was a handful of these things, that just little tiny things that, like, does having the popper in this location, does it add value to the stage, or can we change it out in such a way that we still get the opportunity to create challenge and mitigate some of the potential risks that we may experience?
John?
So like
Robert, I
making the
don't-
popper visible from another location, but that takes you a long time to get to or something.
No way, guys. But see, it doesn't answer the first problem, though. If you even eliminate the activator behind it, you just had a popper there, you still have the same problems. Does the popper operate correctly? Does the shooter hit it correctly? You still have the same issue with just having a popper there.
You do,
So-
John, but it's the issue between one mic and what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mics with FTSAs piled on top of it.
Yeah, but if you're
And what I'm
with
talking
no-
about the stage 3 Ridge Runner.
Three.
Yeah. So so if you go up there and you shoot the big popper and the big popper does nothing, and you shoot it, it's freshly painted, it's a level 2 match, you see that you hit it square in the calibration zone, then it kind of screws the shooter in that he's got to drive it down, because he knows that there's an exponential match-ending amount of points behind it.
Okay.
Now,
Now think about it also from the perspective of, what if you're a Revo shooter? What if you're a single stack shooter and you're very round limited? Okay. And you take that first shot and it doesn't go down, and you're like, okay, now I potentially have to go try and drive it down, because I have to get to that activator to make everything happen. Now you're just compounding the problem.
Yeah, they're gonna have to to be safe. They'll have to take a reload and shoot it again.
I mean, this kind of reminds me of like how good of a club Slipsa is like these things do not, like, we can pull that off as a club because we have great forward falling steel. You have to remind yourself when you shoot at Slipsa, you do not get to drive down poppers here.
Correct.
Don't try that. They just stay up. But like it's one of those things. Like, I just remembered, like, 2015, 2016, about people talking about water on bays and shade. And it's just like, we have water on base shade. We have swingers that activate every single time. We can do crazy things that allow you to try to pick up multiple targets, because when you have those big steel in front of the activators, big steel, paper target, small steel, another paper target, then come back and try to shoot a swinger. So it makes you save targets for that presentation. So I thought it was great, because it literally having the two stages with the front popper and the activator behind, you saw people like, I'm going to leave myself some work so I have something to do instead of waiting for that time. And some of those could be 3 paper targets for popper, paper, activator paper, then swinger.
Well, and that's
I guess I look at it with two different hats, right? Like, as a organizer of a match, you should know your equipment. Like, if you know that you have questionable equipment, don't do it, right? Don't stack it up like that so you cause that failure. As a shooter, I look at it and say, okay, I don't know the equipment because I'm new here, right? Say I'm from out of town. I'm driving it down. I don't care if I'm Revo or, yeah, it sucks, but it's going to suck no matter what, right? Like, you're going to suck and try and argue that, oh, well, it's a range equipment malfunction because the target's not visible or whatever, and then you get calibration and then you're screwed anyway. It's like, as a shooter, I say drive it down. Again, now, coming from a high cap shooter, it's not as big of a concern for me, but even if I put the hat on and say, I'm going to slam a reload, I'm going to drive it down, right? Because those stage points are going to be worthwhile, and I'm not going to take the risk for calibration that you're probably going to fail, right? Like,
right. So my response to that is, how do I I don't care about either of the things you just said. If I, as a stage designer, can create the same level of challenge and opportunity to a shooter and mitigate a potential risk, and that would cause like match flow problems. If I can make it so that you're going to still have to like shoot these elements, but I'm not going to put you, the shooter, in a position of having a match ending like screw up. That's what I should do.
Well,
I should build a good stage for you so that ultimately we never have to have this conversation, because we did a good job on the front end. That's kind of how I'm trying to think about, which is why talking to Jeremy Reed was really good, because it's just all these other things that when you talk about them, they're like, this logically makes sense, but if you don't think about them or somebody doesn't expose it to you, you never take that next step.
I'm with you, Robert, but the thing is, the activator can always be seen in a different position. You could always see both. But
what if he can't?
Activator. But if you can't, then this is a valid conversation. But for the match that we shot, the activator and the front popper could be seen separately, and you can engage them in either or.
Yeah, and so I
just
the
benefit.
I just try and
It's a
look
great
at
way around the issue.
Yeah, well, you could have it seen by multiple positions, but if the shit don't work at the position you planned in, it's catastrophic too. We're also seeing this from the perspective of all is well because it went well, and so we're like, it's not that big of a problem. If it happened to one of us and did not happen to our main competitor behind us, it would be catastrophically, I got bone zoned over here, and it's wrong. I am in full agreement with Robert. I think like having the idea is like it could be shot from a different spot. Is like, well, it should go down from the spot I'm shooting it, and having to sit there and go like, we'll move over here or we'll move out. Like I think that the skewing of it's fine, and the skewing of having lots of bullets in the magazine is just like, I got 6 more to shoot at this position because I got 23 rounds in the gun and I have a dot. And so, but like seeing it from a single stack position or somebody else who's just like, I have 1 round at that position. I get to do a slide lock reload over here, all because my ammo that chronoed faster than my competitor's ammo, but I won the devil's lottery. I'm with Robert. I'm with Robert and Reed on this one. I see it from that perspective. Sorry.
No, I just
Good
actually
discussion.
always appreciate
What's next?
Appreciate when people will actually take the time and say, this is what we like.
We
this is
killed
what we
that
didn't
cat.
like. So
Primer,
it helps to make them better.
That one.
Let's talk about it before we hit the stuff. Let's talk about our own individual match performances and things that did not go as planned. I had 2 malfunctions out of the old Glock. One of them, I think I rode the slide stop up when I fired 1 shot, and the other one I cleared in there and pulled the trigger, and the CCI primer did not go. I was not happy. Yeah, it was weird. It was just, it's either 5,000 rounds on this thing and it's time for a new striker spring, or I got one of them bad CCIs, and I haven't had a primer not go bang in a long, long time. And so it was on that stage 1.
I'm sure it was a high primer.
I ran my finger. I put him in the gauge. I went like this. I was Helen Keller on that shit reading Braille. I was going across it, you know? And so it seemed like it's just either a bad primer or the striker spring. But other than that, I did have a catastrophic loss in points. I was first up on stage 3, which was the first match of the day with the double swingers and the activator behind the popper. And I'm jacked up. I'm gassed up. I am absolutely... IPSC targets at like 16 yards that are swinging at Mach 6, they have a tendency to draw your attention and scare you. Like, I think they were those two little bastard targets, well, at least the one on the left, was the scariest target in the match, and I don't think I will get any disagreement from anyone here. Those little bitches were crazy. And so I show up, I shoot, and I notice as I'm shooting the left position and going into the activator, my eyes just get sucked into the dot, and I go 2, steal, 2 out there, and then
Well, Tommy,
I go...
weren't you shooting occluded? So how could they have gotten sucked
I was
into
not
that?
a shooting occluded.
Okay.
Yet.
I think the stage after.
This is the stage where I'm just like, give me the tape. Give me the tape. And so I go and I shoot and I hear a ding, which means I hit the steel in front of the paper. I take another shot. I don't hear a ding. I'm like, that was good fire. Another one ding. And I'm already starting to do the backup where you're like, I need to leave. And the other part of you is like, no, bitch, you need to plant your feet and take a good shot at this thing. And I go, bang, and I don't hear another ding. So I take 4 shots out of swinger. 2 include hitting some steel, and 2, guess what? Didn't hit anything. And so I go down there, and I already had to fight for a mic on the previous day where I literally told him, that's a barrel hit. I'm getting a mic. Tom, we can call the match director. I can't see the hole from where I shot it. That's a barrel hit. And they're like, thank God, Tom. Thank God you're not fighting with us. We spent 15 minutes fighting with some guy. It's like, it doesn't make... It's a barrel hit. And so...
Wait, Rawson was before you?
There was apparently gentlemen who were smoking a lot of barrels and decided to fight their way into hits. And I was not going to do that, and especially in front of people I shoot with all the time. So I was just like, that's a mic. Give it to me. And so they're like... The ROs are doing like the kind thing where they look at the target and then they scan it for holy relics like left on it. It's like, it's 2 mic. Move on. And so they go 2 mic and they move on. And so that was like a catastrophic, but I literally went there and threw the brown tape, just a little, carry some painter's tape if you're going to occlude the dot, because having the brown painter's tape on the, what would you say? The hue of brown that we have, the plentiful hue of brown we have over here at Slipsa, it was a slightly distracting on the first target, but I shot the last 4 stages or whatever we shot on Sunday with the dot occluded, and the scores did not seem to want to tank so bad. It was but that stage, like, talk about the anxiety of letting targets dictate your form, was a learning lesson. But overall, like, as I was looking for a 1.5 seconds per stage, and I shot a 1.5 seconds per stage faster. I shot about a second behind Kevin on every stage, and Kevin's a fantastic masterclass shooter, and so I felt like I kept a pretty good pace, and I did the things I wanted. I took some bad points along with me, but overall, I was very pleased with the match. John?
So I too died on that stage. I did not have a good walkthrough, didn't mentally prepare. And if I could have reshot that thing, I would have shot the right swinger coming in, sit down, and take out that left swinger with purpose. Instead, I decided to go gung-ho. And as well as you, Tommy, I turned into it, and I'm like, I don't see much. And we're going to go for it. We're going to send it. We're going to send it. And mind you, it was like our second to last stage, shooting all day Friday. And man, like, my brain just went on autopilot going like, let's do this. 2 mic on the left swinger. I go to the right swinger. First shot, Charlie. Second shot, steal. Huh! Half transition, go back. Third shot, steal. Shit. 4th shot, 5th shot. Here comes a train wreck. And I finish off on that stage. That was probably my worst stage out of the match. If there's one thing that the one thing I do like is shooting all day Friday. And the reason why I like shooting all day Friday is because you get kind of warm. And once you get warm and you're in the zone, you can just carry it all the way forward. The one thing that we forgot to talk about was on Friday, The Lord himself decided to bless us with 35-mile-an-hour winds and absolutely destroy the range for like 2 hours. Koski, Robert, and I, like for about 2 or 3 stages as the wind was starting to pick up, sand was like getting underneath our eyeglasses, and I swear to God, I felt like sandpaper every time I was blinking through like 3 stages. We had to stop for 2 hours because, well, shoot, we couldn't even see anything. Targets were flying all over the place.
We
Barrels
couldn't get
were
the
being
poppers to stand for more than 10
Hey
seconds.
Tommy,
Yeah,
our lunch break was awesome.
Oh yeah, everyone's
Forgot I had
everyone's
something
throwing a fit. I'm literally. It was like I was playing Connect 4. I was like, this guy's bitching. Knock it off. We're having a good time. He walks past goes to the next bay. Another team. Hey Tom, what's up? Dude, we gotta get go. Shut up. We're fine. Everyone's fine. Another person walks by. We're fine. We're fine. I was like
done.
Pollyanna.
We were
Robert's
dying
like,
out there.
shoot her to the line, make ready. We're finishing this match. It's gonna be dark in an hour. Get your butt going.
That was a rough match. Like, cause like yeah, the wind is blowing, the sand's everywhere, sand and dust everywhere, and then I get a call at stats. I'm like, oh jeez, and I go running off, go do that. It's just, and then that's the funny thing is like, so what was it Wednesday night? I was over at the range, just trying to, cause I was there all week, just like most of the people, and I'm sitting there in the classroom where we have all of our routers, our switches, everything for our network, so we can do paperless scoring. And all of a sudden, you hear this loud pop, and I right as I look over, I see the switch, and there is black smoke coming out of this switch.
What?
And I'm like, this thing is just functionally like the heartbeat of how we're going to get the networking to work, so paperless scoring is going to work. And I said a few choice words, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And so I got on Amazon, and they have overnight shipping. It'll say
Yeah.
well, it'll be there between 4 and 8 a.m. And I'm like, sweet. Immediately hit the buy button, and didn't sleep at all that night. But I was talking to some friends, and they said they kind of came up with the idea like, what if you just get like one of your home switches? And I'm like, I got a battery, an inverter, and worst comes to worst, I can take this extra switch I have lying around, I'll plug it in, and we'll run it that way until I can get the switch I need. And so I didn't sleep that night. It was just kind of stressful. I got up anyway, and I look at my Amazon app, and you can see the little car, and it says, it's one stop away. Immediately I run to the front door, and you can actually see this. They take a picture to show you the delivery has happened. And in the picture, there's somebody's head like poking above the little glass in the front door, and I'm like, that's me, because as soon as like she takes the picture, I fling the door open.
We would prefer if you just greeted us instead of lurking behind the door until after we take the picture. We don't have to take a picture if we hand it to you. Just freaking step out like a human being, please.
Listen, it's early in the morning. You don't know what Robert's wearing.
Literally raising it out of the coffin. Hello, sir.
I fling that door open. I'm like, you're the most important person in my life today. And so we got to there, and like we have all these new pads. So we bought 20 new iPads for just to replace all of our old and aging.
I got the comment. How can we have brand new iPads and not pasters? I got that comment.
Because we've got brand new iPads.
I said our old iPads weren't new; they were old.
Yeah, the newest iPad we had was 8 years old, and so if they don't like it, tell them to suck it. But that was a funny thing. So we got there, and I got everything, and right as we're about to I'm about to try and sync the pads to give them to the staff, like I pull up the sync, and none of the iPads will see each other, and I was like, oh crap. And so I was able to, and it was weird because they would see my one master pad, but it couldn't see anything else. And so I basically synced 3 pads, and I said, here, take these pads, you guys go start, and I'll keep messing with it. Come to find out that there's a setting inside of Apple security that's like limit IP address tracking or something like that. You had to turn that off. Once you turn it off, everything gets going. But that was basically all of that stuff is pretty much how the entire match weekend for me. It was just a long like thing. Like there's this saying, it's like when you shoot a staff, generally you're going to take a 5 to 10% hit on how you would shoot normally. This weekend it felt like that.
You should redeem that coupon because a 5 or 10% would have been a godsend. When I get the 11:15 text from Robert, door is wide open. Like, he knows I'm asleep. He knows I'm going to get up early for the match. He's just like, just to let you know, door is freaking gigantically open. This meant nothing to me. Your victory will mean nothing. Just to let you know, move on with your life. Steve?
I mean, I shot the match I deserved. I haven't shot for a few months. I've been moving. I knew it was not going to go. I was hoping it would go better than it did, but it was a bit of a train wreck. But everyone on my squad was gracious and pretended that I still knew how to shoot. So I had a good time. And I actually did have a malfunction. I had just a regular full-blown like failure to eject right after the 2-hour windstorm. Then I went and wiped my gun out, and it's like, oh yeah, that could be
Maybe
an
that's
issue.
why.
I think the best part, Steve, was I think it was the stage right before they shut us down. You can be like, what power factor is the bullets you're shooting? 146. Count power 1. Sure.
Yeah, make sure this.
You know what?
Stage with a 23+1, and I just wanted to make sure that first round was hot enough to put the second round in.
The second round. Yeah, the amount of bullets we're stuffing in the magazines. I that reminds me of steel ammo. I remember always going to matches with Robert and Steve, and then like
I brought a box of steel ammo. I should have used it on that stage if I was thinking.
Here's the ammo. Here's the steel ammo. Like, Barry's still open, be like, swinger ammo. Get me that shit. What is this? 150 power
Spinner.
factor gold dot? You know, you're just like, yeah, pop, 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 full metal jacket stuff, sending things everywhere. But I was looking at Steve's score, and I was just like, you're going to shoot iron sights. You're not going to go to the dot. And it's just like, it's time for a 40 cal. Like, you might as well get 40 cals where you can still buy them on the streets and start loading them up just
No, it's
to
time
get
for a dot.
Yeah.
I'll go to the dot at the end of the year.
Thank
Get
God.
converted.
Please, Steve, do it.
Yeah. I was
Join the
actually
rest of
shocked.
us.
We would start falling asleep, and then someone would show up with an iron-sighted gun. I'm like, oh my God, it's an iron-sighted gun. We just ran 42 shooters, and they all had dots. And then finally somebody shows up with a single stack gun. I'm like,
It's
wow.
gonna be like when you pass a Jeep on the road, they all have like the flasher lights or something, right?
they're like-
It's gonna be the iron sight wave because they're so rare.
you saw the trophies for the match, and like the table is like laid out there, and you have like half the table is all carry optics, and then it's all the rest of the people. It's just the world's changed. It's crazy.
And so many SROs. I want to say 70% of the match.
Yeah.
People were shooting SROs, just SRO after SRO.
Well, and then
because they work. They just work.
the other thing that you're starting to see is, like, I saw for not that hasn't been out that much, the 507 comp. I think we had 2 guys on our squad that had a 507 comp. Like, it's starting. They're starting to come in. They're starting to show up.
Yeah, they're
more
just
and more.
so
I'm not a
ugly.
fan.
I didn't see a single M&P. I saw 1 or maybe 2 Springfield XDs, but maybe just 1. The
Are
second
they
one
from
was a
California?
ghost. I'm not sure.
It's on the list. It's like
Yeah,
you're dating who mom picks, and she doesn't have great taste out there in California sometimes.
Hey, be nice to Kamala.
Did you
Kevin,
guys see any M&Ps? Or what?
I did not see an MP. I didn't see an MP. I didn't see an. I would like to get the surveys back for state matches. If USPSA could put out some surveys every once in a while that attached to practice score, and just said, hey, please fill this out. We'll give you $5 off. That would be pretty neat to see what everyone brings to a match, or just send out an email after match. What did you shoot? What was your power factor? What kind of equipment did you run? I think that would be pretty interesting. But Kevin?
That would actually be really interesting to see at the local level, right? Like, because we see the national polls, and it's pretty dominant setup there, right? But it'd be interesting to see what locals run. Well, my match, I just have to say I have a PSA for people. You know that mag springs wear out.
What?
I don't know if you knew this. And I replaced 2 mag springs this year.
Canic
The other
mag springs
ones-
wear out?
Grams springs. and followers.
Oh, okay.
But 3 seasons is too much. if you're wondering.
Too frugal.
Can't-
Too frugal.
Too frugal. Too frugal.
Frugal.
At that,
I'll show you
hold on.
Proof of purchase, like the moment I got home, I ordered all new mag springs.
He crossed the Mason Dixon line from frugal to cheap, and it was right. It was
Yeah,
right around.
exactly.
It was right around.
Fine line, and I crossed it. No, so I had 3 malfunctions in the match. I think all related to mag springs, just like middle of the stack, and then I knew it. I just didn't have a way to fix it really at the match. You're loading your mags up, and like they get like jammed up halfway down. You're like, these aren't dirty. Tap tap tap.
I just
dropped that mag over there, and I got down. So I had 2 ruined tactical followers that were new this year, and so I was running those. But I haven't used those enough to fully trust them, right? Just like new gear and everything, right? So,
Sure.
I had kind of like saved them for when I really needed them. And then I had 2 mags that had new springs this year. So those ones were I had 4 mags that I finished the match with, and just don't bite yourself like that.
yeah.
I shot well otherwise though,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, I'm not unhappy with how I performed. It's just those, I don't kick myself for the mistakes I made, like in shooting, right? Because we all make them. Oh yeah, I shot that no shooter. I got a miss, right? Like you do that. It's like the things that you do off the field. You're like, you're stupid. Why did you do that? Like, they're not that expensive, right? Like,
I just remember Kevin like loading, and he would drop the slide, and you'd hear like the round like hit the bottom of the feed ramp and then clack in, like it was like you were just sitting there going like, it went in. Something's not terribly great right there, and I think I handed him the mag on like our like 4th to last stage, and I was just like, don't
use this one anymore.
don't use this one. He bad kid. But yeah, it was a great shoot with Kevin. I mean, Kevin was on fire for a lot of those stages, and I would say the malfunctions hurt him out from a top 3 finish in carry optics. I mean, he was really doing pretty good.
Maybe I left the door open on a few stages just where, stupid thing. Well, stage 1, that's, it helps to aim. So stage 1, you had that big open popper at the back. So I did the activator sequence, open target, bang. My sights were not on that popper, but I pulled the trigger anyways, right? Like you see it, and you're like, oh, and then step over and shoot the paper, come back, bang. Your sights weren't on the target. You should shoot it on the target.
It's
bang,
funny.
Bang. And in my head, like I literally, it's been great this year. My visual acuity has increased or something. Like I saw all those shots, and every time I'm like, why are you pulling the trigger? It doesn't just magically hit the steel. And so, yeah, it's sometimes stuff like that killed me a bit, right? But it happens, so I don't kick myself too bad over it. But finishing at 95% of Brett, he's a great shooter. So
That's amazing. Good job,
yeah,
Kevin.
I'm happy. So
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's like as long as you like it's like when you have great shooters on your squad, and you're just like, okay, it's 5% below that guy. Like I'm not. It's you shoot somebody, you come up with like 0.3 of a hit factor below them. You're like, I don't suck. I'm okay. You're okay. You're fine. Everything's great. And so like it was a good time.
I was talking to Brett about, and he's like, I'm like, how you doing? He's like, well, I haven't practiced at all this year, and I just showed up, and we'll just see what happens. And I talked to him later on during the match. I'm like, how you doing? He's like, I'm doing okay. I mean, it's not bad for not having practiced. And I'm like, you know why you're doing good? It's because you came into this thing knowing you hadn't practiced, and you're just like, I'm just going to see how it goes. And you just relaxed your way through the whole thing, and you got out of your head. And there's something to be said for that.
a big time something to be said about that. You can work yourself to a loss real easy.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you're working your way to a loss, at least look good while you're doing it. Head on over to DominateDefense.com. Use promo code PARA10. Save 10% off your order. Get the best belt in the industry, the Mach 1 Speed Belt. I am absolutely amazed and happy that 50% of the shooters I see are now shooting with Dominate gear on their around their waist, and I think it's fantastic, and it's a testament to the product that Jason Bunderson is putting out over there at Dominate. So check them out.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Precision Holsters, their fast holster. Use promo code PARA10. Save 10% off of that fantastic piece of gear. You can also check out Rune Tactical. Get a +1 follower. I believe that Aaron is sending me an updated Glock follower, which I'm going to be super excited to test out. And if you want to get a little bit more chunk in that booty, head on over to W74 Guide Rods, and Kevin will make your something At least
Heavier.
3 ounces heavier. Use promo code PARA10 and maybe he'll save you 10% off or whatever. But the shipping, it's tungsten, it's heavy. If you could make it, if the government gives him a permit for uranium, it's coming up. Uranium guide rod. Wear these gloves while you're.
You guide rod.
Not only you have a heavy gun, but it will glow in the dark.
That's fine.
Recharges your tritium.
Yeah. Shoot this gun, and your kids come with 20% more fingers. W74 guide rods.
From our friend Kevin Childress, what is your mental state before a stage? Is it combative or zen or something else?
Well, let's see here. Who's Steve? Do you want to go with that one first?
I mean, you've done your walkthrough. You've envisioned the plan. I think I just try and think about what I'm going to do first. I don't know that I'm like angry or tensed up. I probably am a little keyed up just because it's your turn to shoot. You know you're gonna at the buzzer you're gonna go like a greased pig. So you're
like I
thinking
don't
about your first couple actions.
I don't really have any like feelings in the walkthrough or before the stage, but I do notice behavior changes during the stage, like on that. Like I felt it coming through my bones. Like I knew that the report card was at the house and I was walking home. Like you sort of like when I get close to that swinging IPSC target, like I literally just as I transitioned over to it, like I could feel it coming through me. So like as far as like I don't know, like how a stage is going to go, like I've been doing it too long for it to be like I got to be keyed up or something like that. But I do notice during the stages that certain targets will make me do the wrong thing. John?
Kevin.
No, John. Who's hosting? I don't know. John,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So I would tell you that my best stage performances has primarily to do when I'm emotionless. And right before, like during the stage walkthrough, when I'm on deck and the hole finally loaded up, I try to crush down every single piece of emotion I can and just focus on the choreography I put in place in my head of the stage plan. And once I execute through it, even though I hit that piece of steel on the move or whatnot, I try to crush every single piece of emotion and just follow through on the next step, until I finish the stage. If I end up being I call it emotionally compromised, whether I'm happy, excited, sad, depressed, it's something in my mind, I'm thinking too much, and that's when I typically would not execute as best as I can.
Kevin?
Yeah, I'd second that. I mean, as I've progressed through shooting, it's changed a bit, right? But now, like, I'm totally focused on vision, but you've got to have your stage plan down, right? And I don't have any emotion when I shoot. If I do, it doesn't matter what it is. Like John said, it doesn't help, right? Like, if I'm excited because I did well, it doesn't help. If I'm depressed because I'm doing bad, it doesn't help, right? So it's just execute the stage plan. You can't change what's already happened. And so I just focus on clear all the clutter, see what you need to see, pull the trigger, right?
Robert?
I think emotion and stress is like recoil. You can try and fight it, or you can recognize that it exists and it's never going to go away. And to that end, you get tense before the first stage and things like that. I think the best thing to do is acknowledge that emotion exists, and then focus on what you need to focus on. I don't sit there and try and make it go away. I just figure out what I need to do, and then I go do it and understand that this is happening, but I just accept it, and I just take it and I move forward. And the best stages I ever shoot are usually ones where I get the vision. It's kind of what Kevin says, right? I figure out what I need to see, and then I go do what I need to do, and I just let whatever else happens happen.
Yeah,
I mean, the stress and all that stuff, it's just like water. I mean, it's constantly moving. And if you sit there and you try and fight it and you try and stop it, it's just going to back up, and it's going to start to overwhelm you. Let it happen, let it move through, and then just go through your stage.
Well, I think the worst thing that could possibly happen to everybody is the interstage emotions of the previous stage or the performance of another shooter when you're refreshing practice score, because it will dictate your emotions before and during the next stage. So instead of having the thought of having a visual stage, you will have a time pushed stage of what you're supposed to do because X person did it this fast, and because you can't correctly represent time in between the beep and the last shot, it will just completely mess with you. I think the best way to emotionally regulate yourself is not even look at the end of the match as the goal, but as a USPSA shooting career, because it'll regulate how you act in front of staff, it'll regulate how you act in front of other squad mates, and it will prevent you from pretending that this is the worst thing that ever happened to you and wanting to tell everyone about it.
Fair enough. What level of success does a shooter need to achieve to reward themselves and a spouse to a red iguana dinner at the state match?
Finishing without a DQ. No DQ, red iguana.
That's
DQ, Dairy Queen. Greasy burgers.
You get rewarded either way.
Yeah, I think if you have a spouse that's traveling with you and you're shooting a match, like she dictates.
she gets what she wants.
dictates. Like it's like, how lucky is that to have your spouse go with you to go do that kind of stuff? Like that's pretty awesome. Like the other thing is, like, if your wife starts shooting, she gets nothing, especially if she DQs, because she's already taking up half the ammo budget, probably a little bit more because they're not as good. I'm just making a generalization. What? All that woman joke was too far, Tom.
Hey, come on, walking the fine line here.
Too far, Nelson. Too far.
From Alex Mansfield, how will the match be more prepared for massive windstorms in the future?
Weather control.
I mean, what can you do?
Okay,
Lay down the walls. Lay down the
nail
walls
down
at
the
night
barrels.
before the wind.
Actually,
They were all nailed down. What you'd have to use? What, like 8-foot stakes or
Yeah,
something?
I tell you, like, you would have to, how do we prevent the wind from knocking the match down? Don't put the match up.
Well, okay. So I actually can answer this. So this is like everything. You're not going to prevent the wind from doing what it's going to do. You can try and stake everything down, but at the end of the day, you can never predict every single nature event that's going to come into a match. What you can do from a preparedness standpoint is when you build the match, you can take pictures. If you say you have a drone,
witness
you
marks,
can come up,
pictures,
you can take pictures of things. If you have barrels, you can come in and you can actually paint around the barrels. You can provide ways so that if you had to come in after the fact and fix something or rebuild something like we did, you actually have a location. The more documentation that you have prior to the match actually starting to say this is how we would put this back together if we have to, the more you have up front, it solves you on the back end when you then have issues, which is exactly what we had.
Great answer.
Honestly, if you liked Ridge Runner, that stage 3, Tommy, and you thought that you shot that well and you're very happy and you wanted that to be in the match, you can thank Jon Bautista. If you shot it poorly, you could blame him because he's the reason that stage didn't get thrown out.
Yeah, we saved.
Wait, hold on.
After the storm.
Hold on. You mean you biffed the? Did you save the stage before you biffed it or after you biffed it?
Before I biffed it. So
yeah, they had swapped a partial and an open target or something, right?
Yeah.
No one noticed it. And then I just went through the walkthrough. I'm like, this doesn't feel right. I remember being kind of like, I have to think about this target. And they swapped the two, target 2 and target 6, the open and the partial. And if we didn't catch it, that
such a
that
key find.
Oof, that would have been gone.
So what you're saying is you ruined Chris's match and you ruined mine.
Absolutely.
All right.
That was his goal. He knew.
For the service of all the other people who paid for for all the stages, I wanted to make sure that when you pay the match, you shoot every stage.
Well, that did work out so well for Chris.
He was like,
did it?
whole match or Tommy? Whole match or Tommy? I'm running Tommy over.
Sacrificial.
Let's see, from Marcel. What if you're staff and you shoot a match without banners and they're up for the main match when you arrive the next morning? Does your opinion change if they're put up in a way that they don't obstruct views and competitive equity is maintained? So if you're shooting a match and all the banners
Are not up,
are not
and then
there,
you're
so
able.
you have more visibility,
Yes.
whereas the main shooters don't have it.
I would. In
Well,
in a
we have a rule for this actually. So go ahead.
What's the
Tom.
rule?
Well, it's really easy. If you think the stage is inequitable, you can actually challenge it. But you can challenge
You have
it
to
before
arbitrate
you
it.
shoot the stage. Once you shoot the stage, then you've already agreed that the stage is okay, and then all bets are off. But if you look at it before you shoot it and say this is not the same as the staff match, then you can go through that arbitration process. And so, if it doesn't obstruct the views and competitive equity, that's just life, you know. I mean, like, a lot of times when you have the staff match, everybody's doing the best they can to get the stages on the ground, and sometimes you're still trying to do everything, even after the main match has started.
No, I would say it's a competitive equity problem. I was just looking at Carry Optics. There are 8 shooters that are within 1.7% of each other in Carry Optics B and A class. And could you make over the course of 12 stages, the guys who could get the gun up earlier and pre-aim them on the targets as they are coming around the snow blinds, that might be a significant advantage? I would say yes.
Could you say, Tommy, that the people who had to shoot in the middle of a raging windstorm had some kind of a disadvantage? There's always going to be
absolutely.
things.
Yeah,
but
but
you don't
what-
have control over the wind,
what-
right? You
correct.
have control over the banners, right? So
Right. And so you do the best you can. I think I think the best thing you could do. Now this is hard because if you talk to Brian Conley, one of his big things is he wants to make sure that the Hunter's HD Gold, if he sponsors something, he wants to see that banner showing up in people's videos
and everything. Yeah.
And so he wants those banners prominently placed throughout the stage. And so you have to be really cognizant of getting those where they need to be seen. And if it does change the view, like if it makes it so you can't see through something, yeah, you got to solve that.
Yep.
The hard thing about that is, honestly, the people who are putting them up, they're like, there's a wall and I have zip ties. We're done.
Yeah, well, and then all the walls that are going to be putting on are the walls that are facing uprange. They're going to be facing uprange, and those are going to conceal targets. The other part is, too, it's like when there's 40-mile-an-hour winds, we would like the banners to be there tomorrow. So, some things...
that is a hard problem to solve, right? But definitely consideration.
Yep.
You know, it's like everything, right? You know, it's like the popper question. I started making a list on everything Jeremy Reed told me, and it's like, okay, well, banners. Okay, I'll now go add that to the list of things to think about for your next match. The reason that matches hopefully get better at the same club year after year.
You don't have to make the same mistake again and again.
Yeah, you're not relearning the problems.
Yep.
And so
Nice.
Andy Erickson, did Tom shoot Utah State with a covered dot? I shot a match yesterday with my dot taped up. Now I'm even more Team Tom. Oh, okay. From Connor Williams. No. Barber Training Solution did an excellent post today where he used a rangefinder inside of target to measure different distances in the store and aisles. And there were long range shots. What percentage of people at CCW do you think could make those shots?
0.
Not a lot. I mean, I see the talent of our local law enforcement is getting better and better. Most of the guys are taking classes with Jared. A lot of our guys start to compete. But even talking with the Secret Service team, you know, you kind of talk to them and like, are all the Secret Service guys as good as you guys? And they're like, it's just like any other job in any law enforcement agency. Some guys are at the bottom, and then the guys we shot with are obviously near the top of the Secret Service. And so it's there. I would expect people who could qualify at that range to make some of those shots sometimes. But I would say everyone on this podcast has a high probability of making those shots. But I'm guessing that people with guns at 25 yards are slightly more intimidating than IPSC targets on swingers.
Just a skosh.
Maybe. I
Little
don't know.
bit.
Never experienced it, so.
I'm venturing.
Well, if you
I'm venturing
if you
out
wanna
on women
if you wanna
shooting
come down
and
here,
swingers
Kevin,
with armed
for
people.
Walmart, the Walmart by my house, statistically, you have a
Come
better
down to West
chance of
Valley.
High risk zone.
Yeah. The Secret Service is like, what is this Wet Valley place? This place is kind of. I sent them down to Point of the Mountain, Thanksgiving Point, one of the nicest places in Utah. And they were like, this place is great. We should have stayed down there. And I was like, where are you staying? They're like, West Valley by the airport. I was like, yeah, dude, you're in the Compton of Salt Lake. So yeah, you should have hung down there. But yeah, I screwed up on that first stage and then shot for the last 4 stages occluded. And looking back, I probably would have been happier to shoot the whole match
No.
occluded.
He said he's on Team Tom, so we're not talking about that. From Jack Flash,
This is a
is it
different
worth
question.
investing time and training to shoot with a weekend?
Yes.
Yes, very
100%.
much so.
Yes.
If
Well,
you shoot any of my indoor matches, I guarantee you will be shooting weekend at some point.
Look, if you want to do well on classifiers, practice strong hand weekend. Find the strong hand weekend classifiers.
if you're playing
Get your club
IDPA,
going.
it is the separation between people who are good and people who do not finish well. I remember plenty of weekend stages in which I would see Steve Koski make a 7-second improvement on his score over the competition because Steve Koski could shoot weak-handed around cover, and other people couldn't. So,
Yep, it doesn't come up often, but when it does, it will bite you.
oh, time plus scoring and weak-handed shooting is not. It's like chimpanzees with bazookas. Like, people are dying. Like, so just do yourself a favor and spend 1/10 of the time. Finish every dry fire section with a couple weekend shots, like 3 drills. You will thank yourself. And apparently with the dot, weekend shooting with the dot, I feel is much harder than weekend shooting with irons because that dot shakes like a mother. And
Kevin, do you notice that?
I get the freaking side to side shake. All right, maybe I'm sick.
You're
Maybe I'm
gripping too
done.
hard. You're gripping too hard.
Gripping
Maybe it's
too
because
hard.
your dot's occluded.
Gripping too hard.
No, you're gripping way too hard.
Yeah.
Because same thing strong hand weekend. You're not gonna mitigate the recoil, right?
it's
just
not-
let it happen.
It's
and
just
let it come back in.
it's a
100%.
little weird. Maybe it's that Robert, I so wish you took me up on the if I beat you occluded deal last week. I would be
Yeah.
I'd be
you
on
would-
cloud 9 right now.
Yeah, Tommy?
Cloud 9.
Tommy,
Yes.
come shoot Friday with us.
Sure. Are we gonna have the bet
Come
Yeah,
shoot Friday
I'm in.
with us.
on Friday?
doing
Wait,
one
hold
day
on. I
Friday.
can't shoot Friday. I can shoot Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
Then now
Oh,
now
so-
now the
so-
working
so
man
we
can't
bet
shoot on a
you.
weekday. Now is everyone here I hate. Any more questions?
Look, Tommy, I am just happy that you won because I mean, at least now you'll be happy for the next
I'm not-
month or
I'm not
so
happy
instead of,
that
like,
I
emo
won.
Tommy.
I'm not happy about anything. I don't feel like I did great. I know that you had a bad I feel very pleased that everyone on this podcast did not have the match that they wanted to. Because heaven forbid if somebody actually performed the way we wanted to, the other 4 of us would have to feel like, oh, congratulations. But now we're all in misery pit together, so I'm very happy.
Last question from Josh Zalwig. Actually, Josh, before the match, he said, "Hey, I'm coming up." I'm like, cool. And he's like, "Can you follow me around and play Taylor Swift?" And I'm like, "I will do that for you."
I was
So every
disappointed.
time I saw Josh, Taylor Swift comes on, just kind of play it behind him.
I was just disappointed he didn't defend his production title from last year.
He
Two-
says
well, how many shooters were there? 2 in production? 3?
two,
think
three.
three?
No, there was 3 because that's the only way they actually recognize the division. He says, I thought Utah State stages were really good. The demand on marksmanship was probably on the low side, but movement was emphasized. It made for a fun match. What did you guys all think?
Do I agree that there wasn't an emphasis on marksmanship for as many open targets that I saw? I think the premium on the way that they were placed and the positions and the stacks and the swingers that there actually was an emphasis on marksmanship.
There were no
I think-
crushing 35-yard mini poppers or
It wasn't anything like that.
there.
No.
There wasn't anything like that, but there were a lot of intermediate distances.
Yeah,
I
25
thought it was
yard
okay.
open paper, right? Like that's people think those are easy targets, but go look at the A counts. That's where you're going to see it.
Yeah.
I think it might be I know Josh shot open major, and I think that might be a little different from shooting minor than shooting
Yeah.
open major and blending the positions as quickly as you can.
I thought it was a decent balance. A couple of years ago, the state match was truly a hose fest. people are like, yeah, you got to when you're going this fast, you got to respect the targets because
Yeah.
everyone's just sprinting through the stages and hosing.
We actually
There's
did have
4
one more
shots.
question.
Here's 4 targets in a port. How fast can you split the trigger? Because they're 4 feet in front of the port.
Bautista's like, hold my beer. I'll show you how fast I can split it.
That is the state match Delta Force was born. Okay.
We had one last question from Kevin Izatt. You could discuss the pros and cons of gimmicky stages.
So my thought on this was not weighing anyway. I liked Utah State a lot. I think it was a great, solid match. But in 4 years, am I going to remember these stages? I don't know, right? And I'm not advocating that you should. Like if you look back at like Area 1, how they had the train car ride, right? Like I know it was a nightmare, right? From a competitive equity standpoint, there were issues. I remember it, right? So I'll leave this up to you guys to talk about. I think there's good things both ways, but I don't know.
So one of the interesting things, when John and I went and shot Sherwin's Last Stand in 2020? Yeah, it was 2020, 2021. One of the interesting observations that we took out of that was this was the last time you were going to see one of Sherwin's stages. And so we shot that match and we weren't disappointed. You had this crazy swinger system. And it was interesting because flying home from that, you had this realization that Area 3, everybody, when you say Area 3, forever and ever again, it will always be like the Sherwin era and then the post-Sherwin era. And when he was over it, everybody talked about Area 3. Oh, you had the pool noodles, the tires, all this stuff. People talked about it. Whether it was good, bad, or indifferent, people talked about it, and they remembered where they were when they shot the pool noodles or from the tires, and they'll always remember that. Now that Scott Armberg's taken over Area 3, and actually Matt Hopkins the previous year, Area 3 is a good match. Like sincerely, it's a good match, but it's just another match. And when you talk about Area 3 in 2022 and 2023, nobody sits there and be like, man, do you remember that stage that we shot at Area 3 in 2022? Boy, nobody talks about it like that. You'll never have that thing. And it's the same as what we talked about, I think it was last week. What made Parma in IDPA so fantastically awesome was, they had these stages that were just so memorably cool.
Go-karts.
Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work.
Shoot under this
But
car.
you remember them.
Hit this leg thing. It'll drop the target. You're gonna split him into the gut like he's some guy you just shot in the leg. Like there's. I think as the level of the match goes up, of course the fun has to come down because of the competitive equity thing and.
But
people.
does it?
Well,
yeah, no Texas Stars, none of this.
Nothing that. Well, the other problem is too is like we can't even count on people like not to argue for shit that they didn't earn. It's like that's a double. You're an asshole, and this is yeah, and it's just like it's like okay,
we call that something else. We call that one the Michelle.
Yeah, we'll get the range master. He'll put a target on it. He'll listen to you for 7 minutes and go fine.
What I'm talking about.
It's
you were there.
I think the level one. I think level ones could probably be a little bit more fun, and then you could try to iron them out. But I think anything that actually requires something memorable is something that can't be duplicated consistently. I just think that's the way. I mean, you would have like these things on train carts, targets, wingers, all these things pop up, and sometimes they just did not work out. And
well, then let's talk about that then. So how do you make that work? Okay, so let's not just assume that it can't work, or whatever. What would you do if you wanted? How would you set this up? How would you set the world up if you had this great idea, like shooting from pool noodles or whatever? What would you do as a stage designer and a match director in order to build this?
Well, you'd have to trial
stage?
it at a club match.
That's exactly it.
Lots of times.
You have to make sure that between the first shooter and the last shooter, the whole stage didn't degrade.
Okay, so let me ask you this: Why did stage 14, the part-time stage, work at Utah State?
Because it was replicatable over an entire course. You had it
because it was set up. It was set up before.
Yeah.
That stage was built at Caps as a test bed to see what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Try to figure out the par time for it. If you talk to Alex Mansfield, the par time stage that they did at Area 5, they set that thing, I think he said they set that up like 3 or 4 times in different general configurations. This isn't about like making the same exact stage so that your club can shoot it. It's building a stage in such a way that you can try and find data points to say these are the things that work and don't work. If we had taken stage 4 Wyatt's Way, the one I did, and we had set up little pieces of that in advance, I could have seen that those swingers, because those swingers came out fast, and in the front positions, you pretty much I see brown, I pull trigger kind of for. I went to the left side. By the time you got to the right, it had slowed down enough. But my thought when I did it was that they would have slowed down like much more, so that you could have theoretically ran all the way up range and shot it all from the back. But that didn't happen.
Yeah.
If I had time to like build that stage and build it again, we probably could have figured it out. So I think you can actually create these like fun, like Parma style or Area 3 style stages, but you have to have the support structure necessary to test them and test them and test them again.
The other part is too is you actually need tried and true shooting equipment. I think a lot of the things that make the stages memorable is that we have non-shooting equipment that is not replicatable. Like having a part-time stage and having a setup is great because like any timer can do a part-time in 6 seconds in Iowa, 6 seconds in Utah, from what I hear. And so like you could set it up pretty reliably. But when you have things that equipment degrades, battery degrades, fuel degrades, tire, wear, road surface if you're having carts or something that slide or pullers that yank stuff, like unless the equipment is permanently set up, like you have a thing like Bianchi Cup where it's like, no, everyone comes here. We don't go anywhere else. The show is not a moving show. That way we can have the equipment that moves and we can test it and it moves at the same speed every single time. And I think putting that up in areas and building stuff like that is not really possible on a temporary basis. Like if you put up some sort of pulley system that would move a cart electrically motorized or pulled to pull a certain target at a certain speed, that would have to be set up months in advance. And not only that, it'd have to be tested almost the entire week and maintenance before a major match to make sure it was doing. Because the other problem is too is like I was talking about people trying to get hits they didn't even earn. Like how do you referee that when someone's like, nah, it moved faster for me, bro?
Yeah, and those stages are more likely to get tossed and arbitrated. And
So
it's kind of a bummer, but
I think we already run into a volunteer issue. I think it takes a special person like Sherwin who it would just donate his time, right, and go make these crazy things and make them work and work on it through the whole year or something, right? Or you'd have to make it like if you're going to do it as a major, it's like $1,000 match entry fee, and you're paying professionals to manufacture this stuff and make sure it's going to work reliably. It becomes too difficult, I think, to put that onus on a volunteer basis.
Yeah, but the other part is the ethics of the shooters that appear at a level 2 are different from the ethics of the shooters that are at a level 1. I think we all know that.
Looking at you, John.
I've seen John's deltas in my count. He doesn't have any problem.
I'm not talking about John specifically. I'm talking about his people.
Hey, I will be the spokesperson for my peoples.
Well, anyway, thanks for listening, downloading, subscribing to this lovely misery pit of a show. We appreciate all you guys. We appreciate you guys sending us questions. We appreciate you guys coming up and saying hi during matches. It is quite funny when I start talking to people and they go, you don't need to explain it. I listen to the show. And then I feel like an immense amount of embarrassment because people obviously know what's wrong with me. And so I have to conduct myself in a different manner. But like it is very heartwarming and touching that after almost 10 years of doing this show that there's a lot of you guys who listen to us and appreciate the show and only listen to this. And like when people tell me it's their hour-long commute show at the beginning of a week, that makes me feel fantastic because we are number one show on the playlist. So I really appreciate it. I was very happy to have you guys here, and I'm sorry that Jon Bautista caused a lot of you to go home early. For Steve Koski, Robert Wyatt, Jon Bautista, and Kevin Izatt, I'm Tom Nelson, bidding you peace, love, and soul as we depart into the open waters of the Sea of Life on a little tugboat we like to call the PARAcast.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Toodles.
You guys forget the order of how you do it. Steve goes, Robert goes, John goes,
I
Kevin
totally
goes.
I'm new here, okay? Like, how am I supposed to know? Nobody gave me a script.
Okay, one more time. Robert can edit this in.
Your low seniority,
I-
Kevin. You go
well,
last.
The whole part's going to be on the back end, and then eventually it's going to start singing Phoenix.
YouTube still playing, everybody. YouTube still rolling. All right. See you guys.
Bye.
Yeah.
That was the lamest outro ever.